So we had our crack statistician, and I'm not talking about crack drugs. I'm talking about crack, like looking it up right away, like at baseball games. Japan is a unitary state. All right. So this little chart just shows you, we've got democracy, the selection of leaders. It's an election. We go out and vote, citizen participation. And then what every president finds out when they get there, oh my gosh, it's three branches of the government. The Congress makes the laws, the president enforces the laws, and the courts let me back up. Congress makes the laws, president carries out the laws, and then the courts interpret the laws, all right? And every president runs in there and goes, what? All right. Here in an autocracy, it's Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un. All right, they do everything. And it's simple, all right? And the sad thing is with this whole COVID thing, polling is showing that people would like more autocracy where one person was calling all the shots. If it was Dr. Fauci.
Danger.
Okay, all right.
Danger. All right, so I'm not going to go into this too much. This is just showing you where these different types of governments are, and Mr. Wright talked a lot about that already. So, full democracies, the United States, and the democracy looks different in South America than it does up here in North America. Okay, from our viewpoint, we tend to see, especially in some specific places, you tend to see a little more of the autocracy. Okay, he already mentioned, China, Saudi Arabia, talked about North Korea as the autocracies, right? I just think self-rule. It's all about me, right? It's all about Kim Jong-un, right? It's all about, Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, okay? It's about those rulers. That's autocracy. And then the one in black, that says failed states. We've talked about Libya being a failed state, and the definition there is, what actually happens is you have usually two competing groups, and there's not one that's internationally recognized as the one in charge. And so what can happen is, there's just constant fighting, right? And we talked about, I always think of like Rostow's model, or even, the demographic transition model. So think about these different, governments, and where are they, okay, on those models and in those spots. All right, so this chart is showing us, okay, autocracies, you can see them climbing up in the 1970s, and then a huge drop-off in the 1980s. But overall, the world has become more and more and more democratic, okay? Now, there might be new information out, in the last, few years about where are governments headed. Okay? People tend to like, for a lot of reasons, they gravitate toward democracies because there's a lot of individual freedoms. Tends to focus on the economy, tends to focus on the betterment of the society and the citizens therein. But like Mr. Wright said, it can be messy. When you have so many opinions, how do you make a decision? Okay? People talk about our Congress and how it's so hard to pass laws. Just because there's so many varying opinions, right? And you can have division within that. They're like, we just want to decide or make a decision, okay? So there's the sort of the conflict between the two. But on the whole, on the general, most of the world heading toward more of a democratic type of government. All right. Here we're looking at fragility, okay? And you can see here that the most fragile states, meaning like those states that could swing one way or another, they are primarily in Africa, and then you can see over here in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now, what do those countries have in common? Those tend to be countries where there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of war between various groups, and that makes them fragile. That makes them, open potentially to a democratic government, or potentially open to a communist government or an autocratic type of government. Why is it that Vladimir Putin can exert his influence on Turkey? It's because they're kind of a fragile state. They're in that space where they're just a little bit in between. Okay, China, they're actually investing a lot in these countries here. And if they're giving things to those countries, guess which way those countries are going to go. All right. Gerrymandering.
Can you do me a favor? Can you Google how many states have outlawed gerrymandering? I think it's 6. Okay, California is one of them. Okay, so we've told the story about back in 1810 census. Every 10 years, we do a census in the United States, and then we reapportion the congressional districts. Congressional meaning at the United States level, who's going to go to the House of Representatives. But then we also do it at the state level for our state legislature. Ours is in Sacramento. Okay, so it's important that you get counted. Was I right? 6 states?
21.
Oh, 21. Sweet. We're getting rid of it. All right. So Governor Jerry, and each side blames, oh, he was a Democrat. He was a Republican. He actually was a Democratic Republican, and they were gerrymandering the state to punish the Federalist Party, which you guys will learn more about in U.S. history. Okay, so what happens is the party in power tries to draw the maps to favor their party. So this is called a wasted or cracking system where you've got majority of blue. So we're just going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts that are going to be Democratic here, or I'm assuming they're Democratic because they're blue, but Republicans aren't purple. Maybe it's the Teletubby party. All right. You guys get nothing, you Teletubby people. Who was purple in Teletubbies? Do you even know?
Tinky Winky.
Tinky Winky? Okay. All right. Now here what they're going to do is they're going to pack them. So in this case, let's say the map is bigger and the purple party is actually in charge. They're going to draw this so that the blue party down here got 2 districts and they got 3 out of this. And you're like, hey, that's not right. But you're trying to draw the map to favor your party. Okay. And then there's stacking, which what you're doing here is now you're coming up with all sorts of crazy configurations to try to make sure that your party has the majority. Look at this one here like this, and then here like that. Okay, so they'll do all sorts of different things. California, you can ask, what did Governor Schwarzenegger ever do? All right, besides make great movies. All right, he was actually a big proponent of getting rid of gerrymandering in California. And what that led to was something good. What happened was we used to get crazy Democrat running against crazy Republican. And so you had to choose between crazy and crazy. Well, now what happens is, like down in Bakersfield, they're Republican. So you get crazy Republican against moderate Republican, and the voters have a choice. San Francisco is all Democrat. You get a chance between crazy Democrat and moderate Democrat, and the Democrats can choose. The districts are drawn to going, hey, let's just draw them to the way they should be. Okay, so it takes away from all of that craziness. All right, and is this you or me?
That is me.
Okay.
So Iowa, right? We're talking about districts on the last slide, and we were talking about how the voting system works in the United States. That's what we're talking about, is these various districts and how they're drawn up. So when we're talking about gerrymandering, okay, I'm going to go back one here. Usually on a census year, the party that's in power is in the House, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's in the House of the House of Representatives. They're the ones who get to draw the voting lines.
Actually, it's each state legislature.
So it's drawn by the state legislature.
Yes.
Okay. But the state legislatures can be either Republican
Right.
or Democrat on that census year. But a census year is very important.
Yes.
Right?
This is a very, very crucial year.
So, yes, this year is very important. If we're friends on Facebook, I said, make sure you fill out your census. A lot of information we get for human geography comes from that census, okay? But also, our political system is decided in large part from that census, okay? So the idea behind it is that representation should be based on population. So if the population moves, oh, okay, well, we need more representation for that group, okay? So most of the states within the United States use that type of system. Iowa's a little bit different, okay? So what Iowa does is, instead of having the state legislature do it, they have an outside nonpartisan group come in and they're the ones who decide the districts, okay? Now the idea behind this is that, okay, we're a nonpartisan group, we're impartial, okay? But are they really? See, that's the other side of it. Are they really nonpartisan? Are they really impartial, or do they have their own agenda that they're gonna push, okay? The cool thing I like about Iowa is the caucus. Okay, so the caucus is, this year they're trying to decide on the Democratic candidate, and they bring all these people into a room and all the contenders, right? So you have Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and, Klobuchar and all these different people, and they're all going to be in various corners, and they're going to talk, okay? And then people are going to basically vote on who they like, and then it's going to whittle down eventually to like one or two, and then they're going to decide between those two, and that's how Iowa decides, sort of who they're gonna promote for their candidate. All right, this is a political cartoon, historical political cartoon. The name gerrymandering was, like Mr. Wright was saying, after Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, and what he figured out was, he's like, look, if I can draw the lines just so, I can make sure I get reelected every single time. Okay, so if you can draw the lines, if you're a politician and you can draw the lines, to make sure that you get the majority of the votes, or that your party gets the majority of the votes, you're gonna win. Okay. All right, and then what's this one showing us here? The Washington Post estimated the amount of gerrymandering in the district shape more compact districts have lower scores. So what you might see on the test is you might see a map like this. If it's compact, right, which we know what it means from the shape states and all that, if it's more circular, that's going to mean less gerrymandering in general, okay? If you look at, some of these places and you can see that, okay, it's not very compact, it's really spread out, okay? Like look right here, right? Look right here, super spread out. That's going to mean that it's more gerrymandered. They're trying to incorporate maybe more Republicans or more Democrats into that group to get power for that political party.
Okay, so here you see a map of North Carolina. This is North Carolina, yeah. All right, and you can see some crazy districts that are drawn, and that's why states want to outlaw it. I think at the time this was a Republican state, but if you looked at Illinois, a Democratic state, you'd see the same thing. Both sides do it. In government, you're going to learn that we call politics a knife fight. All right, you're trying to win. Okay. All right, here you're looking at Nevada, which at the state level, if you look at their state legislature, they're Republican. So if you look at the Las Vegas area, it's very largely Democratic down there. If you were to look at a map, Nevada's gone Democrat a couple times more recently. When Obama was up, I'd have to look and see I think Trump won Nevada. But this is blue down here, and around Reno is blue, and the rest of the state is red. So what you want to do is, if you're red Republicans, you want to break this up so you can pack it, you can do all sorts of different things to try to make sure that you are going to get the majority vote. And it's just, this is politics. This is what happens. Okay. Alrighty. Very briefly here, because we're going to get into all the slides, we're going to move into the phase about how we got away from all this fighting in the world because we went to global agreements on trade. Right? If you're trading with someone and you need their stuff and they need yours, you're not going to fight as much. But what happens when we go to this new world order, there's going to be smaller groups that, one, they're not controlled. Okay, the Soviets used to control a lot of things that went on there. They would just crush them. And now people clamoring for, hey, we want our self-determination, and we can't do it through the political process because nobody will let us at the table, so we're going to do it through terrorism. And we'll talk about a lot of that as we go on here. Okay? You're up? Or are we going to end here?
Yeah.